Welcome back, everybody. We're here for another video lesson. We're going from zero to producer in 90 days with Ableton Live. Big thanks to Ableton for extending that free trial out to 90 days. While we're all in quarantine, we can take advantage of this time. Continue to be creative, continue to evolve our artistic minds, and hopefully make a bunch of new awesome music. Let's quickly review everything from Unit 1. We were learning all about the basics of Ableton session and arrange screens, difference between audio and MIDI tracks, and audio and MIDI effects. We were doing lots of editing and automation. We were talking about song form, sounds and instruments, synthesizers, and the drum rack. And of course, at the end of that unit, we got into our project. We made our first instrumental beat, we mixed it, and we uploaded it to SoundCloud and Bandcamp. And as a little bonus, we did a little bit of free promotion tools so that we can start gathering some data and reaching out to our fan base directly, either by having them follow our SoundCloud page in exchange for a download, or by giving them a free download in exchange for their email address. All right, today we're going to dive into a technique called loop remixing. And this is an intermediate technique. So I'm expecting now from the last couple of videos that we did that you've got a basic understanding when I'm talking about a MIDI effect or an audio effect, that you kind of know what those things are. So before I talk about the setup of it, I just want to show you what it does. We've got a couple different break beats and we're at 140 BPM. So here's what our different break beats sound like. Here's what our second one sounds like. And here's what the third one sounds like. Three very different drum sounds. When I pressed play, it was switching between all three of them, depending on what different notes we have here. So we can just place a couple random notes on where we know kicks and snares might be. We can elongate those notes to allow more of it to go through. We can grab notes in between our quarter notes, do some fast changes, do some slow ones. Really easy way that we can just like mix up all of those different things quickly. So all we're doing is we're placing notes, and each one of those notes is just triggering part of that drum loop to start playing. So we can pick and choose different drum loops. We can layer multiple notes at the same time. Maybe we want to layer a couple different claps and snares. And also, because we're using MIDI notes to trigger this, the reverse button and the invert button on your MIDI clip do a lot here. Helps us get some really cool random results. So let's just hit a couple buttons and we'll see how that loop changes. So there, I've inverted it. Press the reverse button. We can invert it again. Reverse. We can legato. Really, really easy to get lots of cool different results combining those three loops, and all of the ability that we have to randomize it is really, really cool. Sometimes those happy accidents can spark some creativity. So that's what it does. Bunch of MIDI notes triggering these different parts of the drum beats. I'm going to go ahead and just quickly, let's switch this to eighth notes. I'm going to just switch through a couple different notes here and create a drum beat. Press in a couple random notes. Do a couple long ones, a couple short ones. And we'll duplicate that first half, select all our notes, Command D to duplicate. And now that we've just got these ones selected, we can just invert the notes that we have selected. So then we just get a different variation between bar 1 and 2 and bar 3 and 4. Very unique drum loop, something that probably would not have happened that fast if I was going to go through and slice up these audio clips. Let's move on to setting this thing up. This trick works with all different instruments, chord progressions, bass lines, percussion, vocal chops, you name it. One thing that you'll want to remember is when you are working with stuff that's melodic or it has chords, note values, things like that, you'll just want to make sure that your things are in the same key. All of these things are in E minor, except for this one bass line, which I've just shifted from F minor down to E minor, one semitone. You can have as many different audio tracks as you want. Just drop some audio loops onto that track. And then on each one of those tracks, we're going to want to go into our audio effects and drop a gate. We're just going to leave the gate as it is for now. Just drag the loop on there, put a gate on it, make sure that your floor knob on your gate is all the way down to 0. And now let's move on to the trigger track. So for this, we're going to need a MIDI track, and we're going to need a drum rack. Go over here to my drum menu, just drag a blank drum rack. And instead of putting samples on our drum rack, we're actually going to be putting this operator instrument. So you'll want to head over to your A sound generator layer, and over here where it says wave, click and a menu will pop up, and you're just going to change it to noise white. So now when you trigger this, it just sends a little burst of noise, and we're just using that as a signal to turn our other tracks on. Command R, we can rename this 1, hold Alt and drag it over 2 and 3. So for every audio track you have, you need a trigger. So we've got 3 audio tracks, which means 3 cells in our drum rack are going to have an operator. They're all just sending white noise. Now we go back to our gate. We're going to open up this arrow here that gives us our sidechain option, and we're going to select audio from number 10 drum rack. I should have called this bass triggers just so it was nice and clear. Pop open our sidechain, select bass triggers, and then we've got 3 numbered tracks here for all our bass clips. Number 3 on the second menu, I'm going to just set this to drum rack 3 post mixer. Same thing here. Number 2, sidechain, audio from bass triggers. This is audio clip number 2, so we're going to have that be triggered by drum rack cell 2. And the same thing for number 1, sidechain, audio from our bass triggers. This is clip number 1, so we'll sidechain this to the noise that is coming from number 1. And now this bass triggers track, we can just turn the audio off of that because we actually don't even want to hear it. Select that part of the arrangement screen, add a MIDI clip, make sure that that threshold is low enough so that it's picking up that noise level. So now we can start adding our notes here in our MIDI clip. So we'll just start one at a time. We'll just do a whole bar of one sound and we'll just hear how that sounds. So there's our first one. We can shift that note up and hear trigger number 2. And here's number 3. Let's start mixing it up. I definitely liked the sound from number 2, then 3, then 1. Let's hear what that sounds like. Let's just repeat that a couple times, duplicate that, and see how it sounds across the whole track. That's pretty cool. I think this one on our third track, not as impactful as a sound as I hoped. Let's put that one back to 2, and then maybe we'll switch this one up. I like how it's sounding so far, but let's just start pressing some random buttons and see if some happy accidents come up. Let's hit reverse and listen to that. Invert. We could clean up a couple of these notes overlap. It's cool on the drums when they overlap because sometimes you get like 2 claps happening at the same time or you get some layered hi-hat shuffles. But with a bass track, we pretty much just want one sound playing at a time. So it's important to just make sure that you clean those up. Any of these ones that have like a little bit of silence, we might stretch some of those notes back just so we're not having moments where there's no sound happening. I'm going to invert. I'm going to actually select a couple random notes here and hit the reverse button and see if we can get some cooler combinations. Move some of these overlapping notes around, and let's listen to that. So that's basically the technique. Nice and simple. We're just using noise from an operator to trigger different loops turning on and off. Pretty easy setup, pretty easy execution. With the invert and the reverse, you can imagine that there's plenty of really cool combinations of sound that you will get. Different loops. You can replace the audio loop with a different loop. You can throw in more than 3 loops if you wanted. You can do your bass lines and your drums all in the same group and trigger those together. This trick also works with different glitchy sounds or chord progressions or leads, vocal chops, you name it. An arpeggiator or a random MIDI effect would be a cool thing to throw in the chain there. All kinds of different results you can get. So hopefully this loop remixing trick, you can see some potential for some creativity and some happy accidents. Try this in your beats and let me know what your result was. Thanks again, everybody, for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. And big thanks again to Ableton for extending that free trial. Happy producing. Peace out.